Thank you, Mike. All right, let's see. So, no building, or I should say every building, is a collection of many things, carbon, all kinds of things, right? And so, some buildings are only known for the single day that they're used. Appomattox Courthouse, right? So April 9th, 1865. There are other, wow, that's great. So we'd have candles, but the forest is too dry. We'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, we're in a stage 3 fire ban, so the fire danger is very high right now.
So, but what this building, what we've tried to do, and really under Mike's leadership, we have they really have gone overboard. I've never seen a project like this, but we've talked about is that this building is 250 years old. So it's 250 years of history, not just the incident of one day, December 27, 1782. So. I'm going to go over a little bit of the restoration project with you, and then if you have any questions, you can stop me. And it's not. Actually, I had prepared this for Cape May, and at the last minute, I shifted back to the battle. So anyway, here we go. So we're in the Pinelands, right? This is the National Preserve. This is where we're at, Cedar Bridge. A lot of people call Chatsworth the center of the Pinelands. I think really Cedar Bridge is one of them. Anyway. So here's where we're at. You all took your GPS to get here. So this piece of road here, yeah, that's one thing about these TVs. You can't put the dot on there. Anyway, this little piece of road, this is the colonial, this still exists, this is a colonial piece of road that came up here. But then here's Cedar Bridge, and this is what they call straight road. It doesn't look straight, but it is from 1797. So this is a sighting of our site. Here's the piece. Now this is when, so I kind of started a lot of this stuff as amateur, and I think the reason they gave me this job is they wanted to make sure that the claims I made were kind of okay, right? So this is my map. You see where we're at now is in the middle there, yellow I guess that is, and the land around it, it was all government property, but it had all been sold to the state. I also got this as a Christmas present one year, and I put in all the. Okay. So here we are. Now this is what we have now. This is what we have, and through Mike's efforts, we were able to trade with the state. So this is very close to that original 1743 farmstead, and a little more land. And so you can see, I'm completely colorblind, but I believe that everything in green is state or federal lands.
It's dark green.
Dark green. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. What ours is the piece in between, right? So we
and the light, very light green sort of around it.
Right. And so we're open. The Ocean County has a open space tax, and through Lands Trust, we're open to buying more land. Hopefully, up to the left-hand side is a couple of little lakes. So this is our sign. We had money from the DEP, from the state. We got some roof damage from Sandy. They gave us some money. It looks like a logo, right? It's a NASCAR or something. So I first heard about this. I was born and raised here, about 10 miles down the road here. I had never heard of this whole thing in Cedar Bridge. I went away to college. I came back. Local author and newspaper writer, a retired Pemberton history teacher, wrote this book. If you get a chance to get it, it's great, little vignettes. And he's the one who taught me about the story. This is the Tavern. When it was finished, it's different, of course, now. These are, you'll see there are signs around. This is from 1924. We found photos of the tavern, and it kind of evolves over time, right? This is an artist sketch. It's, with Mike's description, they would be more accurate now, but this is the little tavern. So this is, now Mike is a pretty smart guy, but he does not give up on ideas, which is good, right? You know, we go on somebody leader like that, right? So this is, Mike was sort of suspected that this was not the original location of the tavern, So this is some of the places we went in the swamps looking for it. And I reached a point where I didn't want to go in the swamps anymore. But Mike went in the swamps, other people went in the swamps, and they went looking. So this is the 1924, this is the earliest photo we have of the building. This is from the 1938 Historic American Building Survey, when they went around documenting historic buildings, putting out-of-work architects and engineers to school. You can see the 1830s edition is on the left, so those two windows. But you also, what I really want you to notice is that there are no trees around, right? It's completely vacant. At the time of this survey, the Peters family are living here. They had been injured, owned by the pen producing company, and Mr. Peters had been injured doing what his supervisor told him to do, and he said it was a bad idea. But they let him live here for free for like 35 years because of the damage. This is from a photo from a book put together by the school students in Ocean County during the Depression. If you can see all the way to the left, and Mike's eyes are better than mine, he discovered that there actually was a lean-to on the back, and this is the way it is in 1964. You can see the little bridge, which now you can see over there with the metal railing, had this cute little wooden thing. And every time I would give presentations, I'd say, that's really cute. So I guess if somebody from the bridge department was listening, so they came out and they put a metal galvanized bridge parts out here. And then I said, oh, that, it's kind of ugly. And then suddenly it got painted. So what was that, Mike? About 4 or 5 years ago, we had a giant hole show up.
Well, we had a hurricane and we had a flood come down through it, and that's when that's sort of happened.
So this water is flowing in this direction. This is actually part of the Mullica River system. This is also from 1964.
Right, we're not in the Barnegat Bay watershed here.
Right.
We're in the Great Bay watershed.
So this is from 1974, and I just want you to kind of keep mind here that these little, Mr. Koenig planted these little trees all around, right? Well, one thing about planting little trees is they get bigger. This is a winter scene, I think, from 78. This is what happened. These are the trees, right? So as soon as we took over, Mike said, you can't have this. With a forest fire, the whole thing would burn up, right? So we've removed the trees back to really the way it looked before, and historically, because you had to protect the building from the forest fires. Mr. Koenig was a real pack rat. He was a single man living here. He had gotten divorced before he got here. As some of you may have known, he got a Bronze Star from being in the South Pacific. He cut the grass around here without any clothes on because as a 70-something-year-old man, most people don't want to come up to you if you don't have any clothes on. I have not experimented myself with that plan. I think that's fairly good. As Mike said, he had trap guns. He had all kinds of jacuzzis that had frogs in them and so on and so forth. He was quite a guy.
In the bar room, well, he had stuff everywhere, but in the bar room, he had a big table that had come out of Clayton's Log Cabin, which anybody who's ever heard of that on Route 72 was a famous restaurant going way back in the day. Their specialty was snapper soup. But anyway, he had a big table in here, and there was stuff all over the place. He had 2 ropes crisscrossing across, and we brought when we purchased the property from him, we brought the county PR lady here to meet him and do a story and stuff. Well, he had strung all his old underwear up across the table, and she couldn't wait to get out of here.
And her business card ended up next to his jacuzzi on the 2nd floor. So I don't know what happened, but that's not my business. Okay. So when the county purchased it in 2007, then they gave Mr. Koenig life estates. He was paying something like $10,000 or $12,000 a year in property taxes. So have the county purchase it really was a good deal. What had happened was when he sold back in the 70s to the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, he sold all but the last 5 acres, and he gave them first option. But he gave them a first option at $30,000. So what the county, after a lot of haggling, was able to get him, I think, $120,000 or $130,000, and so he was very happy, and he didn't have to pay any income tax. This is the way it looked just before we started the restoration. We had taken down the trees. And this is while they're putting the siding on. This siding that you see here is not New Jersey cedar. It's actually yellow or Alaskan cedar from British Columbia. They couldn't find enough New Jersey Atlantic white cedar without knots and so forth to do the work. Here they are putting it on. Now, so this is the other part of the story. So Tom Farner got me excited. We all do this, right? We get other people to be interested. So he said, well, Tim, we should do something. So obviously I was the person who had to go to the freeholders and ask them to buy it. And at that time, freeholder Bartlett was in charge of the history and so forth. And he said, Tim, how much money do you think it's going to cost to renovate that tavern? And I had been part of some projects, doing historic restoration on the fly, sort of I call it guerrilla preservation. We've got people to come and donate things. And I said $150,000 freeholder. Now, I was not working for the county in those days, right? So I gave him an honest answer. So, you can count it in different ways, but if you count all the pollution and so forth, you get way over $2 million. So he never trusted any of my estimates after that. But, anyway. And I got a job out of it, so that was a good thing. So, now this is somewhat representative of the description Mike gave you, but it was some smaller building between the two chestnut trees. And why do we know that those two chestnut trees were not here, Mike? Because they're Chinese chestnut trees, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there were no Chinese chestnut trees in the 1700s. Anyway. So this is what we think the building originally started in. We say 1816, and it has a lot to do with the nails and so on and so forth. 2 rooms and a bar room on the first floor. Probably an outside kitchen. We found a kitchen out back, but there may have been a lean-to. Joan Berkey thought there was a lean-to. Anyway, so this is what we think. Mary Paveus in our office did some of these sketches, which was very nice. Then they add on the 1835, the kitchen on the side, the inside kitchen. So this is the way it kind of looked, as 2 doors as it does now. And then it gets this porch on the front by 1938, and there was a barn across the street that was a combination bowling alley, dance hall, and horse barn. It just seems like they're incompatible uses, right? Particularly after the horse barn, I don't know who wants to dance, but anyway. But it fell down actually the night before they did the survey. So, and this is 1938. These are the sketches they had. Then what happens in the 1940s, I told you before, Mike's eyes were better than mine, and he saw that there was a lean-to on the back. And so, which by the time the Peters were here was actually part of their kitchen. You can see there are 2 rooms in the back. This doesn't work, this thing. But they were the dining rooms. You didn't eat at the bar. It wasn't like whatever kind of bar you go to eat today. And Fred Nethel's or whatever. You didn't eat at the bar. So there were 2 rooms. One was for the wealthier people. That's the one that had the fireplace. The not so wealthy people didn't have a fireplace. And now, by the time Mr. Koenig got here in 1979, he had built this giant greenhouse addition on the back. He had over 200 5-gallon containers of water that the sun would heat, and he heated the house through passive. He never had air conditioning in the building, and he had the passive heating, and then that was the part all the way in the back, and there were just other outbuildings, and it was pretty interesting. Anyway, so this is as close as we can get to the way it was when Mr. Koenig had it, and then we, as part of the architectural process, drawn for a very long period of time, they put on the modern bathrooms on the back, and then covered the back porch, which is reminiscent of the way it was in the 1940s. So, this is the way it looks now. So the front porch was not here in the beginning. Mr. Koenig built this in the 1960s, but we kept it because Pinelands Commission is very tough because if you take a 300-foot buffer from that stream and you take a 300-foot buffer from those swamps, there's no land on the property that is not in a buffer zone. So anyway, so we put this in. These benches are copies. We went down to Cold Spring Village and copied their benches. Our in-house carpenter, Dave Farrow, made those for us. And you can see that the yellow cedar has been aging. Now, these are photos of Mr. Koenig. What he did when he had the 200 and some acres here, he would let people come and cut lumber, and then in return for that lumber, he would have them, the trees, he'd have them bring back milled wood so that he could put new siding on. And he actually took all the siding off the building, and he and he re-sided it, and he put some homosote behind it and so forth. So we had to take all the homosote off, and the siding was not in any good shape, so we had to replace it. These are the, on the left-hand side, this is, we're going to call it the original siding. Has that little groove in it that we asked if they could replicate that, but I don't know how many of you have dealt with architects. Do we have any architects here? I don't want to badmouth architects. Anyway, so we got this thing on top, you know, instead of the little curve, we got the big curve. But anyway, this is what we ended up with. Now the kitchen, this is all replicated, that whole room. We had the gut. These cabinets we bought. The architect ordered from Ohio. They had 3 coats of paint, and then somebody took chains and beat on them, and it makes it look like it's aged. But anyway, this is why it didn't turn out to be $150,000, by the way. There's a lot of stuff here that I hadn't anticipated. All of this earthenware is all replicated. A gentleman who worked with us at the time, Nick Wood, was able to find out of work bicentennial artists, because bicentennial artists, that's not like a growth industry, like there's no future in that, right? So they've been waiting around, and these people hadn't been making anything since 1976. But all of the things that were replicated are based on things we found in the archaeology. This is an example of what's this called? Where's Samantha? Yeah. So when you look at the plates, this seashell finish evolves over time, right? And so what we have here, we could put against this, like Mike said about the masters, with the looking at the wood, and you can kind of tell when your different plates are from. They threw out too much of the stuff. We had to go in and get some of the stuff out of the dumpster. So you have to remain skeptical but supportive of government, right? That's a good thing, right? So they came to us and they said, you know, this is the light you need for your sconce lights. Now, there's no evidence there were ever sconce lights here, but they said, this is the sconce light you need. And they did a prototype for us, Mike, and what was it? They were like $3,000 a piece. And so Nick ordered, we got them from Williamsburg for $35.90 a piece. We even had to get a UL representative here to certify that they weren't a fire hazard. And even with that, they still ended up being like $50 a piece. So they're the ones we see. This is the kitchen. This is actually the floor from the attic. And this is the timeline of who owned the property, who lived here. Nick brought this down from Maine. He was from Maine. He went up with his wife and a little daughter to visit his family, and he had this. So in that, there's a bankruptcy in the mid-19th century, and they talk about a pickle barrel filled with pickles, and it's worth $1. So Nick, we ordered this up in Maine. They made it for us. And it had, the creosote was still fresh, so he had to put it in a garbage bag to bring it all the way from Maine down here, and both his wife and his daughter were willing to disown it, but it's here, and we're glad to make pickles. So
You may remember, Nick, he used to come to our meetings about 5 years ago.
He's up now at Twin Lights in Monmouth County. So this is a kern that we got to help illustrate to the students about making wheat into flour. So it works. It's in the other room. You have to really work hard on this thing, and you almost get no flour out of it. So we bought another one that it doesn't work as well, but you get results, and people are less angry at us. So this is the wall where when we pulled off the knotty pine, there was all this wallpaper behind here, and what did they tell us? There were 9 or 10 wallpaper layers. We had an expert give us. There's a whole movie in there about it. This is so you can identify where they're at. The research they did on this building is, I tell the students who come, it's like crime scene investigation, right? So this is so you can find the different layers of the wallpaper. And never thought a movie on wallpaper could be interesting, but it's 2 minutes long and it's not so bad.
But it's not really.
Well, so Nick did some things with the archaeology where he glued the things together, and of course you have to use a kind of glue that's reversible. These are the maps. promise you, my wife thinks that I'm math addicted, and she's probably right.
Where's Norm tonight?
But these maps, the point about these maps is, and Mike found some of these, we found some of these, some are fragments from Rutgers archive and so forth, that in all of these maps from 1740 on, this town, which went under various names, Pettit's, Cedar Bridge, different names, is on these maps. I was with my grandson at Williamsburg, and we saw a wall map that had, the middle of, from like New York City down to through Virginia and so forth. And there was Pettit's. There were maybe 8 towns in all of New Jersey that were identified, and we were one of them.
And the one that I pointed out to a few of you, but one of those maps is a Hessian map from 1777.
The one in the center.
So this was on their radar. There's also a British map that we don't have here, also from that period that this was on. So they had this on their radar at that time.
And on the left, this was kind of an interesting experience. We went to the archives in Trenton, and they said, oh yeah, we have this old map of the survey of the Lawrence Line dividing East and West Jersey. And they said, but it's never been scanned. They said, we said, we'll pay for that. So, no, you can't go there without the archivist. So we had to get in the van, drive it to Philadelphia, to the Athenaeum, and get this thing scanned in. And we went there first. Mike makes us, plan ahead, right? And we had a parking spot, but the parking spot wasn't for the size van that we took. So the young man who went with us had to keep circling around the Athenaeum for like 3 hours until we got this thing done. So this is, so New Jersey used to have a panhandle. We lost that. We lost Staten Island. New Jersey has had some problems over time. But anyway, they did 2 different surveys. I always wanted partial credit in math class. The gentleman Keith was very involved in the whole schisms with Quakerism and so forth, but he ends up being off by, I think, 7 or 9 degrees. And so that doesn't sound like very much, but by the time you get up to New Egypt, which is a pretty big town, the east boundary is the Lawrence Line, the west boundary is the Keith Line. And so I have not written the letter yet because my math teachers are all dead, but I apologize to them for, it is important to be accurate. So, this is a map made by, for General Clinton of Monmouth County, because he was having so much trouble with the privateers, and this site is on that map. Here it is here, close up. New Stafford Township, that's because it's named after Staffordshire in England. There were only 2 towns in Monmouth County that later became Ocean County, and Little Lake Harbor. They always leave Little Lake Harbor off, which is really unfortunate. But anyway, so, because up until then, Stafford Township was governed by Shrewsbury, so they didn't have building permits, but if you needed a building permit or you had a complaint, you had to go like 60 miles to get the complaint, which maybe was good to be that far away from government, I don't know. Again, one of the many, many maps. This is Pettit's. You can see almost every one of these maps. This is the one I was talking about from Williamsburg. Willis is another name for what's now West Creek. You can see why my wife thinks I'm addicted to maps, but anyway.
Maps are so cool.
They are. All right, so here's Pettit's. So here's the deal. This is the Keith Line, which is in the wrong place because it's really much further over to the left, but anyway, we don't need to know that. And this is the Lawrence Line. Actually, Pettit's is in between those 2 lines. And this is the road. They call it the Old Road to Springfield. And then it divides down. By 1830, there's another tavern across the street.
You forgot the Egg Harbor Road.
And the Egg Harbor Road comes down. So it's an intersection. That's one of the things that this is so important. Is right. And if there was a question that Pettit's and Cedar Bridge are the same, we actually found a fragment from the archive at Rutgers that tells us it's the same thing. So this is the sign that's down there. And so we wanted to note where the road is, but we did not want people to ride down that road because it's like fall off the edge of the earth. And so this is the road layout in 1774, I'm sorry, 1774. They certify the road, not this road, another road that kind of goes through the woods, and actually there's mountain laurel growing in probably the wagon ruts, so it's kind of interesting. But it's called the Old Springfield Road. This is that fragment. This is a fragment from Burlington County. Here again is Cedar Bridge. Wildermuth, that's the guy who runs it during the mid-19th century. He dies falling down the steps. He's called Blackjack Wildermuth because he's a collier. He makes charcoal, so he's always dark. And then you see the other tavern is right across the stream. This is that fragment I was telling you about. And it says, Pettit's at Cedar Bridge. All right. The map's end soon. Okay. So John Kraft, in his book on the Lenape, he identifies these different trails. So the trail that goes to Tuckerton, ironically, is called the Manahawkin Trail. But this, as I think Mike mentioned earlier, we had archaeological evidence down next to the stream, not from the Lenape, but from earlier, that we had fire-cracked rock. So this was definitely an east-west road for at least the people before the Lenape, and it was missed on this. So this is the site that we're in now. And just over time, this is the sawmill. This particular one, if you look at it with a microscope, says it has the ruins of the old sawmill. I thought we were done maps. I'm sorry. Okay, this map is very interesting. This is from 1836. This is a map of completed canals in the United States, and it shows a canal from the Delaware River to the Atlantic Ocean. This is not speculative. This is supposed to be completed. Actually, it would have only needed like 4 locks or 5 locks to get from the Delaware to the Atlantic Ocean. It was never built, but they figured, why should we have to wait till it's built? We'll just put it on the map. There's a kind of weird thing with the Pennsylvania Railroad. The Long Beach Island has a Long Beach Island, a Pennsylvania Railroad on it under a subsidiary. But you had to go through the Tucker Railroad to get there, and there was a plan in 1893 to build a spur from that would have gone directly to Long Beach Island. There was one of many, many economic crashes during that time period, and they never built it. This is the Pinelands Jetport. That's a whole other presentation, but this used to be a billboard. What I want you to notice more than anything is, you see how there's all that sugar sand and the trees are like chopped down and stuff? That's what I remember when I was a kid. I don't remember this forest we have now. I think it's because there's fewer forest fires. It's gotten much greener and growing. But anyway, sugar sand. And this is it. It would have been each runway. This was for the SST. Each runway would have been 12 miles long. It's unbelievable. It was defeated for a number of reasons. They were going to have a spur of the parkway that was going to go under it. They're going to build a new city that would have looked like Disney World or something.
All here.
So this, I know all of you are really smart researchers, so you never would have fallen for this, but I'm a sucker for little old ladies, right? So this little old lady comes in one day when we're just working on the building, and she unfolds this little piece of paper. And she said, my sister and I drew this map. She said, I want you to have this map. This map is like sacred, but I'm trusting you, Mr. Hart, with this map. And I thought, wow, that's really nice to be trusted with this map, right? Because you know how I feel about maps. Well, here's the map. They were just copying from this other map. I couldn't believe what they did to me. But anyway, she was a nice little lady. She didn't leave her name, so I can't defame her. But I can't believe it. This is the map that she told me was the secret. She and her sister were giving me all these sites that I would never be able to find on my own. And I went to the Ocean County Historical Society, and here's the map. Anyway, so this in red, that's the Colonial Road. And then in 1797, they built a straight road. Again, it doesn't look straight now, but it is. Wow, I have a lot of maps. Okay. So this one,
Where is North?
they were going to. North is, there.
Where's Norm?
Oh, Norm. Oh,
He's
okay.
the master of the map.
I wouldn't give this if he was here. I wouldn't do that. They were going to originally have a county that would have been not Ocean County, but it would have been from like the Forked River south, and Manahawkin was going to be the capital. Nobody wanted to buy into that, and so it never gets built. So this road, if you are headed out towards Chatsworth, this dip in the road, this is called Bacon's Ridge, and that's John Bacon, the loyalist. He lived in a cave about 4 or 5 miles out that way. seen the exhibits. The field school, as Mike said, 4 times Monmouth University has done their summer field school. Now this is another thing. Dr. Veit is a wonderful guy. We should all be very nice to him. He's doing lots of great work. But anyway, these are the field schools. So here they are the first time. They're looking for things. They couldn't find the well the first time either. And so later when the diggers come, they say, how is it that the diggers could find these bullets and the archaeologists from Monmouth University could not find them? Here's the reason. You see the Porta-John? That's where they found the bullets of the Revolutionary War. As Mike says, you cannot make this stuff up anyway. There it is. There's the bullet sitting underneath the red thing. They dug. This is the diggers. They came. I've never been anywhere near reality TV. It was the scariest moment of my life. You have to sign this piece of paper that says that they edit whatever they want. So they could have me saying, I'm enthusiastically supporting what you say, and they could have just said, their aliens came here, right? You know, like from outer space. And so I did not sleep too well until that.
Just to back up, they were after us about 3 years to do this, and there was a lot of stipulations for them to even come here. For example, archaeologists, they had done digs on National Park Service sites, and they had received a lot of criticism from the professional archaeologists associations about that. So in order for them to come here, we required them to have a professional archaeologist on site. So it had to be done in a professional manner. It couldn't be just what you see on TV. There was a lot more behind the scenes before and during the whole process.
But off camera, they would say things to me like, Tim, do you want to say, like, you're really unhappy with the people you work for? I said, I'm not saying that. Are you crazy? So these 2 guys, they worked in a copper mine, gold mine, whatever it was in North Dakota. So they were drinking one night, and they came up with an idea. They said, what can we do not to have to work in that mine anymore? And they came up with this idea of doing this TV show. That's pretty smart.
Can we see this episode somewhere? Or?
Yeah, it's inside, and it's also on our website. So yeah, we have an edited version because it gets kind of long. This is the archaeologist from the University of Pennsylvania who came down with them. So if you ever talk to the people from Bravo, and I'm sure you know the people from Bravo, right, from Monmouth Battlefield, they're very angry at me. We invited them to come. We invited every archaeologist. They would have paid to have another archaeologist come and look, but anyway. But you see how these trees are all here? This is like really a big difference, right? This is the well Mike's talking about. So we frankly spent $20,000 on this ground penetrating radar, which sometimes comes up with really interesting things. They did not find this well. When it rained, the well opened up. There it is. This is what I was talking about, the sinkhole that was there in a hurricane. And so this we found on the fireplace. You can see the artifact in here. See, it says December 24th, 07. Does that mean 1807, 1907? So our expert tells us that a left-handed person wrote this in the cement, and she thinks it's from 1907. And this is where it was. It was up high on this fireplace, and I had never seen it. But anyway. Just the level, I don't want to bore you, but there are 30 campaigns of painting here. So we had a little argument with our architect. Everybody who knew Cedar Bridge remembered it being whitewashed. What they used to do is take whitewash and then they would crumble bricks in it, and that would be red. It would make it red. And she wanted the whole room to be red. And I said, there's only 1 out of 30 campaigns where it's red, and it's not the first one. She said, so she went actually to the painter when he was here, and she didn't think I was going to be here, and she said, I think it's all red now, she said, make it all red.
And to back it up, there wouldn't have been any paint when it was built.
Yeah. Of course, but you have to be careful. So this is the coin from Napoleon Bonaparte's older brother, Joseph, and apparently, he had the house, the mansion in Bordentown, and apparently he and his 300 favorite friends would come down to Barnegat and spend a couple months each year. And we found that coin actually right under where I'm standing.
And there is documentation he was here.
Yeah.
Actual documentation.
He also found the Jersey Devil, but well, that was last month.
I was just asking about his cousin.
Yeah, right. So this is that survey we talked about from 1938. It is incredibly detailed. This is the way it looked.
Oh, wow.
These are the 4 photos that they took. And they were, as I said, they were out of work engineers and architects, so they were, they did literally thousands of buildings across the United States. They only did 2 in what's now Ocean County. This is that barn that was across the street I was telling you about. This is the bar room. This is the before the restoration. And Mr. Koenig had some very interesting furniture here. Most of it was the wrong time period, but this is his still. Wheaton Glass made these bottles for us, again based on evidence out of this is the cups that you were using. Now this is this room, yes, and then
Tell them about the chairs.
so the chairs. So there's this whole thing about, is something authentic in history? Is it a replica, a reproduction, or is it what the reenactors called Farby, right? Is it like this thing that's just like made up, like, you know. Anyway, so these are original. These are called Ware chairs. There was a family in South Jersey, around Salem County, that made these. We paid $35 a piece for these. We got a price to replicate them. It was $2,000 a piece. The bed that's upstairs is from a gentleman who worked at the barracks in Trenton.
Charlie's relative.
Is that
They
really?
were on my family
Yeah.
tree.
So this is a kind of funny story. So Nick was obtaining these, right? So no one from the bicentennial wanted to buy Ware chairs. They just were not popular, right? So the people agreed to sell them to him for $35, and then they called him back and they said, you know, Nick, there's a real demand for these chairs now. There's like, 60 chairs have sold, and we think we should get more money. He said, I'm the demand. What are you talking about? I'm the only person who wants to buy this thing. The bed upstairs we paid $350 for. The beds we had to have replicated were $3,000. There's Mike and Mary Jane and I. So taverns were a really big deal, and this is from the 1830s, and you can see here there's the cage, because that was the important thing, the bar. So this is Cold Spring Village. See how their bar comes down? Wrong. This is the East Jersey Tavern in New Brunswick. Wrong. Wrong. This is Englishtown Tavern. I think no. This is in Haddonfield. This is the Indian King Tavern. This one is and so this one is actually more accurate because the cage is going left to right, and we know that because this is documentation from a tavern that used to be at Wading River that they also did during the Depression. And these are the tavern rates: 9 cents a night to stay in a bed with other people, like maybe five other people, like Moby Dick, right, in the beginning with Queequeg, right, and Call Me Ishmael, right, and so the prices are wild. If you kept your horse here overnight, that was 30 cents, but you were only 9 cents. So,
What's valuable?
so the prices were set. There was price control. I see some people in this room who remember price control. These are called ticks. These are the mattresses. We put hay in them, straw in them. And poor Nick, he's not here, so I can tell these stories now. So he had gotten married while he was working with us, and he couldn't find his wedding ring because we had to treat the straw with fire retardant so it wouldn't burn all the way down. And Samantha, how many bundles of straw did we look through? Yeah, 6 or 7. We couldn't find him. He's really getting upset because he's just been married for a few months. So Mike got one of the guys from the parks to come out. They used a metal detector. It was in the straw in the pillow is where it was, but they did find it. So this is a bed at Indian King Tavern. We stole that design, and we made our own. This bed, $350. This is the inventory of all the stuff that was here during the bankruptcy. So this is a window pane you'll see upstairs. This shows the construction and what they had to repair. This is not a Roman numeral. This is probably how many they got, like 100 board feet. They would mark it with an X. Here you see that there's like these 3 lines and then 3 other lines. Most everybody was illiterate who would be building a building like this. And so somehow these illiterate persons knew Roman numerals, so they could match 3 to 3 or 4 to 4, but they couldn't read. So anyway, this is the thing that's upstairs. These are the paintings by Mr. Glanzman. He's a contemporary of Rockwell. This is Mr. Koenig receiving his check for the $130,000. He was ecstatic. He's the happiest man I've ever known in my life. He was really happy because he was only supposed to get $30,000. I'm all the way over on the right, and I'm falling asleep because the tent is like heated to a point that you just can't stand to be in there. And the county historian, who I was replacing, said to Freeholder Bartlett, she said, I think Tim really was listening to what I was doing. I was falling asleep because I was really hot. But anyway, this is Mr. Koenig, World War II veteran. Has clothes not all on here either, right? This is in the military. Here he is. So he was in the bar so often down at Clayton's that they came in to do an ad for plastic tubing or something, whatever it was. And he was in it, and this is not his mother, but this is when he first took over. This is the Peters when they lived here. It was pretty basic. Then when he restored it, he distorted everything with varnish. This is the furniture he had upstairs. We had to sell this furniture. They won't let us give it away to anybody because it's government property. So we got $1,700 for it, and I'm sure between the attorney and the county administrator, it cost us like $10,000 to sell it. But anyway, we did what had to be done. So this is it. This is what I'm talking about. See on the lower part is where he had his greenhouse with the water, and then he had where plants were growing. It was unbelievable. This is his jacuzzi upstairs.
How did he get it up there?
Well, because he had a door that he cut in upstairs to get it in and out. Yeah. And he had a sauna. Here's Clayton. Well, before that, he had a sauna. He had a bidet. This guy was pretty much a party animal. He was like quite a guy.
He was a playboy.
He was a playboy. So here's Clayton's log cabin.
Who did he play with?
Built in 1934. Sometimes it's better just to ignore what's being said. And so this is where my father had his prom with his 24 graduates in his high school. This is the table Mike was talking about.
And if you follow this road out for about a mile, where it comes out to 72, it's right over there, not very far.
So before I worked for the county and I worked for Mike, I was not the most organized person in the world. And so I would quite often forget to tell Mr. Koenig that we had somebody from the state or the newspaper coming out. And he was always a good egg about the whole thing, but he'd have to, like, as you say, his underwear was hanging, and it was, and he'd always say, Tim, I'll make sure I'm dressed when you come.
And one other thing, probably everybody's heard of Henry Carlton Beck and the Forgotten Towns of South Jersey. This is one of his places he came regularly and would bring a lot of people here.
So it made me feel not so bad. So in 1956, he brought 300 cars here, and the Peters happened to be away, and then they pulled out the Jersey Courier, and they saw 300 cars at Cedar Bridge Tavern, and they just weren't there that day. So anyway, Clayton's Log Cabin. This, Mike was able to find some of this for us. There was a fire tower down the road. You were on this road tonight. I don't need to tell you about that. These are the feet of the fire tower. I was completely wrong. Like, these feet are, this is on top of Forked River Mountain, right?
No, that's on the mountain road.
This is on the mountain road. But this is not the fire tower, though, right?
No, yes it is. It was the third fire tower. Third Cedar Bridge fire tower.
Okay. When they moved it from location 3 to 4, they used a helicopter to lift up the fire tower. They dropped it. They did some damage, but nobody wants to remember. It's still
539.
This is my grandson, who's now 34 years old in the Army Reserve. This young man on the left is, this is the first year we did a reenactment out here without telling Mr. Koenig we were going to do it. And so this is like year 3. We were doubling the amount of people in the first like 10 years. It was pretty good. And then later, we get a couple hundred people out here for the battle. Last year we got a horse.
What date is it going to be this year?
December 2nd, a Saturday. So just, we're almost done. Just that Cedar Bridge doesn't change, but originally it Today, it's in Ocean County in Barnegat Township. And then before that, it was in Union Township. And then before that, it was in Union Township in Monmouth County, then Stafford Township, and then ultimately it was in Shrewsbury Township. So we have not changed, but the government lines have changed.
And some maps show it in Burlington County.
Yes, and many of the people associated with it are from Mount Holly. So here is, if someone in your family is up late enough when you go home tonight, you can tell them two things. This is, New Jersey used to have a panhandle, and the dividing line came from the south of Long Beach Island. Apparently there was a stone there, and it went up to where 4140 crossed the Delaware River. This was the line in 1964. This is where it is now. This is a monument that's out here in the woods. This is our line telling people we are welcome to West Jersey. These are different things. What was all that about? I don't remember. Oh, this is really interesting. Mike found this. This is a wood cutting survey. And so, see how skinny those little lots are? They weren't trying to build like micro houses or tiny houses. What the idea was that you owned one of these things that you could cut, and if you waited long enough, you came back like 20 years later, the wood will have grown back by then. This is Peter's family. This is that thing I was telling you about. See, most of my stories are like backed up with fact, you know. Not all of them, but most of them. And here's Father Beck, and this is when he brought all the people out. This is the family, the Peters family. So this is pretty funny. I think the next slide is going to show this. We were here when a lady came in and she said, "Oh, this was my family." She gave me a whole bunch of photos. I had to really quick copy them. And lots of books have talked about this, as we said. The old inns and taverns in West Jersey, what Mike was saying, is a little hard doing research here because you would have thought Cedar Bridge would have ended up in West Jersey. We went and found the records at the Camden Historical Society, and there were none. So here's the line. He's only talking about things to the west. And this is that book, The Tides of Time. You can see the little shed in the back. This is a very interesting book. This is a very important book on the Pinelands, done by the Library of Congress. And it says that Candlewood, which is just like a mile over here, was the center of the Pinelands. And so we had to get rid of all the junk that Mr. Koenig had here because he was a single man. So everybody gave him all their crap. There was a bus in the back. There was a van in the back. When we cleaned out the stuff in the attic, there were like 3 or 4 women's mammographies up there. It was like unbelievable. So here we are. We captured throwing the piano out. It's not like time flying, but it was. I think we missed the thing. This is the chimney, and that's it. So anyway, it's a wonderful place. I'm really very happy to work for the county, and they've done a great job. And it's just it's nice that we can all enjoy it. So, thank you.